All right, welcome back to the exciting adventure that is Radio Wasteland. I'm your host, Chauncey Hallworth. This is my co-host, Kara Kittrick. Kara Kittrick brings us the news, and I would like you to tell me what's going on in the world. As a lot of people know, I'm a shut-in, so what's going on out there?
Well, it's funny you should ask. In Germany, a shepherd used strategically placed breadcrumbs to arrange 700 sheep and goats into the shape of a vaccine needle to, quote, encourage people to get vaccinated. No word on whether or not he decided to name this piece of performance art Wake Up Sheeple. The rate of people fully vaccinated in Germany stands at just over 70%, nearly 10 points higher than in the US.
You know, I saw this. I saw this on Stephen Colbert, and his question. You know, one of the jokes he made was something to the effect of like, now everybody with a low-flying aircraft over Germany now knows that they is reminded to get the vaccine.
This thing is, it would just look like a crowd of sheep if you were just like there.
Then the other thing he said is, why use sheep? I mean, wasn't it pro-vaccine what he was doing?
It was. To be fair, I don't think the like sheeple jokes.
It doesn't translate to German very well.
Right. I don't think it works because like German words are just nuts. You know, I think bat is something like Flittermausen or something, which just means flying
they got
mouse.
A word for everything. They probably have a word for people who are acting like sheep, and it's probably Der Stiepenhausen or something. They have a word for everything.
Right. But I'm just saying their word for sheep is probably like curly dog or something.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably, it doesn't have the same impact. I'm sure it's like probably 25 letters long.
Right.
10 syllables, and it's not the same.
I guess the true story here is that we're still telling people to get vaccinated.
We are.
And have you been reading or watching much news this week?
No, even though I'm the news person.
You are the news person, but I mean, I watch the nightly news. I mean, I just watch the BS news. And I feel like the messaging has pretty much changed to this is as good as it's going to get, and we need to like start mitigating this situation.
Yeah, I think that's true. And
this is the new normal. Get used to it and move on.
I think, I mean, that's kind of the way it is, because like, I think everyone who wants the vaccine at this point has probably gotten the vaccine. Right. So it's just, that's a lot fewer people than we thought it would be. We thought, we basically like everyone would get vaccinated, we thought, and the pandemic would just be over. Yay. But only like 3/4 of people got vaccinated or less. And so
that's just in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would be more apt to get vaccinated if we just stopped talking about it, frankly.
Honestly, yeah.
I also had this conversation with my wife, and because she doesn't believe in that this should be a mandatory vaccination. And I think I agree with that. I don't know. But I did propose the question because this is the question that I want to ask people who are just going crazy over the vaccines and the masks and all this stuff, which maybe they're justified. I don't know. I'm not. But I am saying that there has to be a line. Are these people saying you can never tell me to take a shot? You can never force me to wear a mask? And the question is like, well, what if that disease is guaranteed to kill 10% of the population? Can the government do it then? Okay, how about 25% of the population? Can the government do it then? It's like, where is the line? Everybody's so adamant about like, this is wrong and this is right and so on and so forth. Neither of those are true. What I really want to know is, where's your line? How many people can die before the government tells you to wear a mask or the government forces you to get a shot? Now, I agree. We're not there yet. I agree that coronavirus is probably not that. But that line does exist, and I am curious where everybody's line is.
Yeah, well, I'll bet it's different for everybody. I think like vaccine mandates from like the government and big employers and stuff makes a lot of sense. I think like a general vaccine mandate for just everybody, probably not a real good idea. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. But here's where a big part of the confusion comes in. Big companies. I think it's weird that the government told big companies to do it, but I don't know. I think
a lot of them just did it.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at is like insurance companies probably just told them to do it.
Right, yeah.
You got to do this, you know, but then the hard part is, should insurance companies have that power? And, you know, so it's a bag of snakes, you know, when you try to go down there, because you're all like, well, insurance companies should have told them to do that. But also insurance companies shouldn't have that power to tell people to do that. You know, it's like, and that's a big part of the problem with our world that we live in today is all the little micro knots. You know, there's a whole lot of big knots, but each fray has become its own knot, you know, and it's hard to get to the bottom of it.
You're saying it's complicated.
I would say it's beyond complicated. There comes a point where you probably just need to cut out the matting. You know,
you're saying it's so complicated that it's intractable.
Right. Like my wife was listing off all the new laws that passed in California, Oregon, and Washington. And some of them I guess I agreed with, and some of them I just thought were ridiculous. But the ones I thought were ridiculous were a lot of stuff like seatbelt laws and helmet laws, where I understand that can save some lives. And it just seems like people cutting away at the fray of the big knot. Yeah. So that they don't have to do the big knot. I'm just all like, no. Stop futzing around with the little stuff and get to work, you know. Untie the big knot, you know.
Well, so what's the big knot in the case of like seatbelts?
Oh, I don't know. It's not my job. Nobody would elect me.
That's a good answer.
Nobody's electing me.
But yeah, that works for me.
All right. We better move on before I display some more of my stupid. All right. What do you got?
All right. Well, so we did Germany. In Egypt, 3 people died and hundreds were injured over the last few months as powerful storms roused Egyptian fat-tailed scorpions from their burrows and into the streets and people's homes. Experts say that many Egyptian scorpions are extremely venomous, their sting more than capable of causing death or serious injury.
Okay. That's an
you like that, right?
Terrible.
Good.
Ecologically freaky. So taking us back to the previous thing, one of the laws that Terry said was like restaurants can no longer automatically just give you plastic silverware. You need to ask for it. I forget if that was California or Oregon.
Right.
I want to say Oregon already had it, but
yeah.
And Terry's just all, oh, I bet you think that law is stupid too. And I'm just all, no, I think that the environment is an existential threat that's going to kill all of us. You know, I think that's one that needs to be addressed right away. That's one of the big knots. And hordes of scorpions coming into people's houses because of the environment, I think is an eye opener.
Yeah. To be fair, I talk about climate change on the show a lot. That's because I'm hysterical about climate change and think we're all going to die. I don't know that this news story specifically was probably as climate driven as a lot of other things I've talked about. I think.
You think this might just happen every 10 or 20 years there? Like this is like, oh, it's the year of the scorpion again. Everybody pick up your babies.
Well, yeah, kind of. Like, I mean,
that's even more terrifying. But I gotta say that I like the fact that you know,
there's not much evidence that these storms were like seasonally unusual or anything like that. It just happens that, you know, it was at a bad time with, you know, where the scorpions were living and just a bad place and just they got real unlucky scorpion wise.
I see. Well, I got to say, I really like this then, because as a person who likes to write and read stories and adventures and stuff like that, you know, you read about in Lovecraft and in watching Indiana Jones about these dark corners of the world where you really could get attacked by a horde of scorpions. And it's nice to know that there's still some magic out there. And there really is a major city, a capital of the world, that could get assaulted by scorpions.
Yeah. Well, it's very much, like in The Mummy, right? In The Mummy, the movie.
Oh yeah.
Like the guy
with the scarabs.
Imhotep's all, well, not just scarabs. He's all summoning plagues once he gets out.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
could be the beginning of something interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I hope we'll have Imhotep on once he's conquered, one or more hemispheres of the earth.
Hey guys, I'm just on to remind you that all must burn. All must. Everyone will die for what they did to me 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Well, that might be the world that we're looking at when
I appreciate a guest who tells it to us straight. Frankly.
Totally. Yes.
They don't beat around the bush. They're not worried about sounding crazy. They're just like, I'm here to kill you all with my magical powers.
I like you guys, but still going to eat your babies. Right.
Exactly. I'd vote for that guy.
Totally. All right. What else do we got that's new?
What else? So economist Alan Cole says we're not paying enough attention to an insidious form of inflation happening right now. Services suck now, but cost the same amount. Restaurants have spotty hours and not enough staff. Hotels cut back on features. Schools provide worse education in the form of Zoom. Companies have blamed this on a lack of workers, but in many cases, business leaders say they have simply realized that they can save money by eliminating jobs because customers are willing to accept a worse product right now. The Federal Reserve and Treasury has claimed that this problem is merely a temporary effect of the pandemic.
Well, it's not temporary to all those people who can't get those jobs and can't feed themselves and are like me and had to go into some debt through COVID. I mean, sure, it might be fine for Greenspan, but he can, or whoever it was that you just said, that was a pretty crappy thing of him to say. Yeah, I just saw an article about this with, what was it? Robots in the hospitality service. Like delivering room service and like taking you blankets and so on and so forth. And, it was about 5 years ago. And everybody I bring this up with doesn't remember it. Maybe it was just one newscast. I was watching a newscast and there was a whole panel of people basically saying that the world needs to get ready and that the government's actually talking about cutting us down to a 4-day work week. Because we've talked about this before. In history, one man milk a couple of cows, spread that to his neighborhood. Now one man is like milking 400 cows in an hour. All those jobs had to go somewhere, and all these next jobs are going to have to go somewhere. And so just like 5 years ago, it was on the table with the government talking about cutting down to a 4-day work week and all this stuff, because really the work just wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, I tried to bring it up with people. It was just gone out of the news. And it seemed that the government kind of doubled down on 8-day work weeks and working hard and getting stuff. And I think it was an economy manipulation, basically saying this isn't going to work right now. But I do think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I guess, yeah, it is like related to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But
well, if we become accustomed to those services, because look at me, I would prefer a robot come to my door to bring me my food than a person. I don't have to communicate with the robot. Person's just all nice weather we're having. I'm all you. Oh, beep. Sorry, Jared. Bad language. But I hate it when I go to Starbucks and they're just, oh, what's your plan today? And I'm just all, oh. Or what you've been out doing,
What do you want to
be like? Well, I just got back from
know?
the doctor. Turns out I have cancer. It's like I just hate it. I hate it. So in a world where people are isolated, they're on their devices, they're on their phones and so on and so forth, this is happening and it's not going back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope so. I think like things like the 4-day work week are a good idea, because I think the alternative to that is we all keep needing to work, a huge amount just out of some crazy Calvinist principle that work is good, but our jobs are all, nonsense that doesn't help anyone.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think is to varying degrees very much the case right now.
Well, those who are fighting for the status quo that's who's trying to hold on to this.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was picked for me for my life, I would pick a 6-hour, 5-day work week. Right. I like working every day. I think it gets the blood flowing. You're up, you're moving, it's got stuff going. But I'd just assume it'd be over sooner, and I could get on to the rest of my life, the rest of my existence.
Yeah, I mean, you want it to be more efficient. Like we've done all this stuff to make human activities more efficient. So why should that not show up in people's lives?
Yeah. When I've worked jobs before. So have you ever I only really knew you work in doing the content writing. Have you ever had a service job?
The closest thing was I worked in a call center for a while doing surveys on the phone.
Okay, we'll use that one. That's perfect.
But you do interact with the public there, and you interact with the public specifically in a situation where they hate you.
Mm-hmm.
So
all the better for what I'm about to say. And that is, do you feel that you would have done a better job and a more thorough job and a happier job with 2 hours less of it? Would that 2 hours turn the productivity of your 6 hours? Would it make it better? I've worked a lot of jobs where had I just gotten paid the same amount as my 8 hours for 6 hours, I probably would have done a better job.
With that job specifically, no, I don't think so. Because it was already a situation where like people only came in the hours where we would be likely to talk to anyone. So the hours were already like cut down a lot.
Right.
Just because there's a lot of times of day where it's just not efficient. And this was one of the jobs where the level of skill is pretty negligible. You need to be able to read the survey and like not stumble over your words and not like read it with some inflection in your voice so people don't get bored. And you need to be able to lie to people to keep them on the phone. But like overall, it's mostly just a numbers game of eventually getting the random retiree who could do it. Now, what I would say about this is that we did some surveys that were genuinely like valuable to society. Most of them were not. Most of them were, this political candidate is doing a survey because the guy they're running against is doing a survey, right? It's like, it's an arms race. So it's not, if there was just, for instance, like a piece of regulation that said, hey, political candidates, you can't do these anymore, knock it off. All these surveys will be done by, some nonpartisan independent group or something.
Right.
Like if that happened, then all of that work would disappear. But that would be good because that work is doing nothing to benefit anyone. It's just annoying. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
it's just
like it would,
right. Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the way I felt about like marketing, even though I think marketing is pretty intractable. Like, I think that's part of our society, but it's again, a thing where like you need to spend more on marketing because your competitor's spending more on marketing.
Yeah. My focus with marketing tends to be being available.
Right.
And doing a good job, no tricks, right. No tricks.
Right. Exactly.
Did I ever tell you that I used to work at a call center?
No, I didn't know that.
I worked at a call center for about 4 hours.
That seems about right.
Right. So I'm working in Bog Bean in Reading, and my boss fires me on my birthday. Oof. And I have a 2-week-old baby.
Oof. So you need a job real quick.
I'm friends with my boss. I probably deserve to be fired. I don't remember what the situation is, but I probably deserve it. So here I am.
This was when you were like 20 or something.
Oh, yeah. I 24. I had a Harley at 24.
Yeah.
So I need a job. I need to take care of my family. Right. My kid's mom at the time, she ain't working. Plus, she just had a baby 2 weeks ago.
Right. That makes sense.
So I go get this job at a call center, and I tell my family, pick up my baby. I'm just all, Daddy's going to work at the call center to put food in your mouth because I love you so much. I hate it. but I'm going to do it. And like, it filled me with such anxiety, the idea of calling people in this situation. And so I get in there and, it's one of those guys who's just all like, hey guys, what's going on? Let's work this team together, blah, blah, blah. One of those guys.
Oh God.
And like, he just does not see me as a person at all. He just sees a person to make the call. So I get sit down with the script and everything. And I'm sitting there and I have such anxiety about this. And it's not even like I'm better than this. It's like, although there was some of that in there, but I couldn't even get to that.
Like, I am worse than this.
Because I had such anxiety about even doing it. So
was it like tech support, or were you cold calling people to sell them?
Cold calls. Yeah.
Yeah. Surveys are a little better than that, because at least you're not asking for money.
Right. Yeah. You at least are on an there's some sort of level of thought that goes into it. But okay. So I call the first person, they answer the phone, and I click and hang up. Right. Because I'm all, oh God, they answered.
I did that the first time at the call center. I was like,
and then I call.
I got over it. I was a legend, but.
And I call the next one and I'm all, hello. I do want to hear about it if you were a legend. Call the next one and I'm all like, hello. And they say something and click. I hang up on them again. And like, I can't complete a call. I'm like too freaked out. I can't complete a call. And I'm like,
they train you at all? Did they?
I don't even remember. But when I get really stressed out, I literally see spots. Like floaters, like my eyes are filled with floaters, and like I'm just all like overexposed, and so I get up and I go walk into the back of the office, and Dan or Chaz or whatever his name, it's just all, hey Chauncey, what's going on? How's it going? It's just all, you going to use the bathroom? We're doing a good thing here today, and I have the door and I just slowly close the door in his face as he's talking to me, and I walk out to my car and I drive home. And I pick up my daughter and I start crying, telling her about how daddy didn't love her enough to work the job.
God. That's like a scene from Office Space.
Yeah.
That's the just closing the door. That's like that scene
where it was fully just slow motion in his face. Like, and it wasn't like it was me like trying to fight it. I'm trying to fight it, but it's like, no, my fight or flight is kicked fully into flight mode. There was no fight in me at all in that moment.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a really hard job. Respect to anyone who's ever done it, even if the job itself is useless and only makes people's lives worse.
Right? Yeah.
If you're in a position of working a call center job, you're not in a position of having to worry about that.
You did.
I did good. I did good for a while until when I'm doing jobs, like the anxiety never comes in right away. It like creeps up over time. Because like initially I'm just in like Hulk mode when I go into a new job, and I'm just like, I need to be awesome at this. But after a few, months, the existential, like, oh God, is this all there is? Sort of starts to creep in, and that's what tends to screw me over.
Right.
So, but no, definitely like for a while. I only did that job for 6 months. But like
that's 5 months and 30 days further than I made it.
Yeah. Definitely for the first couple of months, I was doing good.
Yeah. That's funny.
Just because I could read the scripts, right?
Right. You made it further than I made it. All right. What do you got there?
Yeah. All right. In Britain, last-minute amendments to a police and crime bill have essentially criminalized most forms of protesting in a move that critics have blasted as, quote, police state stuff. And for good reason, because criminalizing protests is a big part of the literal definition of a police state. Protesters are banned from blocking traffic, locking themselves onto objects, or just being noisy on pain of up to 51 weeks imprisonment. The bill also grants expanded police powers of search and seizure at any location a protest is, quote, likely to occur, and also aims legal penalties at anyone contributing to or planning a protest, for instance, by encouraging people to show up on social media.
Okay, this is a confusing one. A lot of people are going to see this as
Yeah.
being black and white, but here's why this is confusing for me. If I'm driving down the road and some crazy drug addict is in the street, which I've seen naked sometimes. Sure. I actually saw one dude wearing, in the middle of winter, wearing an upside down sleeping bag with eye holes cut out of it, just walking around like some sort of monolith like from ghost. 2001 or something with eye holes. You know, okay, so if this guy is blocking the street, can the cops arrest him?
Well, yeah.
But if he had something that he just said he was standing up for, they couldn't. So this is a difficult gray area. You know, if it's like, if somebody like chains themselves to my mailbox, I'm going to be all like, get this guy out of here. And they're just be all like, well, I don't know. He's opposed to all the lemon trees downtown. I'd be all like, I don't care. Get him off my mailbox. You know, it's like, it becomes a very gray area when you try to create specifics about those things. I forget what the third one was: blocking traffic, chaining yourself to stuff. And there was another one too that's also
just
has
being noisy.
Yeah, being noisy. You know, if I'm,
yeah,
it's a prime example.
What I would say is that the legal definition of like protesting in these situations is, I think, not as gray as you might imagine from those examples. Like, it's basically, will this hold up in court to a jury as, yes, this was a legitimate protest? And I think, you know, your lemon tree example, no, that for one thing, it's one guy. And this applies to like large groups of people. But
one guy can be right, though.
Yeah, one guy can be right, but that doesn't mean that what they're doing is a protest.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is it's to reasonable observers in court, can you make the argument, this was a protest, I was doing this, you know, to make the world a better place? Or are you going to come across as a crazy person? And yeah, well, that's not a perfect system or anything, but like, I think generally that's going to weed out the more obvious examples of guys who are just like cranks destroying stuff.
Right.
I think good faith protest is something that you can recognize, even if you don't
agree with that. I mean, I of course agree with that on it, but I mean, the way the world works is that obviously people aren't born with ethics.
Sure.
And a lot of people aren't being taught them. And so someone's always going to exploit that loophole. You know, one that was interesting to me, like I said, my wife and I were covering some of the laws. One was that, I want to say in Oregon now, you can't discriminate against Black people for their hairstyles.
Right.
Which, when she read me the law, it didn't specify Black people. So that's good. But that was the purpose of the law. And right. I'm just all, okay, so the law is basically saying that you can't discriminate against anybody for hairstyles, which is what the law should say.
Yeah, that would be the most reasonable thing.
Right. But again, where's the line there drawn? It's like, you know, if I want to have, 2-foot Liberty spikes coming out of the side of my head,
right?
You know, it's like, I don't know. I don't even understand how any of this works. I'm surprised we didn't all die and burn down years ago.
That's fair, and real good campaign slogan there. I think you've got a winner. I'm surprised we didn't all die and burn down years ago.
Yeah,
but
that's the new slogan.
I know there was a thing a long time. I can't remember what the exact context of it was, but it was basically like I think pizza chain said that delivery drivers couldn't have beards, and that got successfully like changed through lawsuits because it was discriminatory, because there were like certain segments of like Sikh populate or just like sort of Middle Eastern populations for whom like they need to grow their beard, otherwise they're going to have like real gnarly problems with like ingrown hairs and stuff. And it's like, if you're in this racial group, you're much more likely to suffer from that. So it was considered to be discriminatory.
A lot of
and I think
people.
Yeah, when I hear that, like that that argument that was made in court, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. This is something where like saying you can't have this hairstyle is not the same type of burden equally across all racial groups. It's like it's different. So I suspect the hair argument was made in a similar like spirit, even if I don't understand the specifics of it.
And it made pretty good it made pretty good sense. But that beard thing pisses me off, and it's not because I'm a beard guy, but it's because of one conversation I had when I had a beard. Some family member, don't remember who. I'm rocking the beard, just starting.
Right. It's your face.
It's my
face. You are the beard. You've become the beard.
No. This is my face. If I shave my beard off, that is not my face.
I wouldn't recognize you. I'd be like, who is that guy?
No, this is what I'm naturally meant to look like, is what I'm saying. This is my face. Everybody who has a beard naturally is meant to have a beard.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I mean, for you to tell me I have to alter my face in order to go to work, that's like a job. That's like them telling you as a delivery driver, you need to shave your head.
Right.
That's part of your face, that right. You can't tell somebody to get rid of a beard. That is absolutely ridiculous. That's what people look like. So this person's just all, but we can't see your face. I'm all like, this is my face. What are you talking about? For the first time, you were finally seeing me. This is me. So I'm apparently passionate about
Very
this.
impassioned about this. No, I love that. And definitely, like, I would extend that to anything where it's like work requiring you to look take active effort to look substantially different than like a lot of jobs. Basically, you are putting an enormous target on your back if you're like a woman who doesn't wear a ton of makeup. Right.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing. It's
Well, and I get there's always going to be jobs out there,
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm getting a job as a pizza delivery driver. I'm not joining I'm not joining the damn Blue Man Group. I don't need to shave off my beard. It is not a part of the job. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I forget what the beginning of this segment was about. Let's move on to the. I believe this is your final article, man.
Yes, Israeli scientists have taught goldfish to drive.
Wait, what?
I don't know what's not clicking. They taught goldfish to drive.
Drive a car?
No, okay. So what they actually did,
how do they get their little fins on the wheel?
Was they basically took these glass tanks and they mounted them on kind of like these little drone robot things, so that when the fish like swim in a direction, it moves in the direction. And the goldfish were basically, once they sort of figured out how it works, were with the motivation of like fish treats, able to navigate around obstacles and stuff. They could get pretty good at driving these tank car things.
So they weren't just butting up against the glass. They were actually like,
no, they were like seeing, because it's
making
glass,
the weight happen,
so they
like riding a bicycle.
Right, because they could see outside of the enclosure. Yeah. And goldfish, famously not intelligent creatures. Huh. Yeah. But no, they could figure that out. I'm not sure what the broader like geopolitical significance of the story is. I don't know. I mean, there
call
is
me
any,
when you've
but like
use treats to have them form a giant vaccine needle in a parking lot somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, science suggests it is possible.
Yeah, apparently, if you motivate them just right.
If you motivate them, yeah.
I watched a show, a YouTube channel called Veritasium. I might be saying.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Have you seen the one about them, bicycles don't work the way you think they do?
No.
Okay, so they built a bike that they can make it so you can't turn left or right.
Right.
They can cut it off. So they put people on this bike and said, I want you to go up there and I want you to turn left. And we're going to remove the ability to turn right. So all you got to do is go up there and turn left. And nobody could do it because what we're all naturally doing is we're actually falling into the turn. When we turn left, what we do is we turn right a little bit first and then fall back into it. And the inability of the bicycle to turn right at all caused all of these people to fall off the bicycle. and stuff, So there's like a natural balance that we're using that we're not even knowing that we're using. And apparently goldfish can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the researcher said some nerd stuff about how, it proves that they are as adept in a physical environment as an aquatic environment or whatever. But they taught fish to drive.
Yeah, so, who needs AI?
Soon they will teach fish to vote.
To kill.
To love.
Yeah. It's, it's all fun and games until the future wars are fought in battlefields of fish tanks.
I do not know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with
by overfeeding the enemy fish.
Yeah, with robot fish.
Yeah, well, my wife has that ability. She makes any animal fat. I made myself fat. Don't blame my wife. But my dog, fattened him up. My cat had him just for a couple months now. He's fat now. At her old job, she had a goldfish that she somehow blew up to 3 times the size of the goldfish. And he started to get pale too. It's like there wasn't enough gold color to cover the.
There's only so much gold leaf in their bodies.
Right, yeah. So it's he had to spread the goldfish melanin around, so he became all pale looking. I don't know. It was weird. Very, very weird.
That's
okay,
horrifying.
so now that we're done with the news, I did want to talk a little bit about this. Basically, the split in the country here. There's just so many angles that people are coming at this from. I don't even know how to start the conversation because.
You sent me this article. That was basically saying the left wants to destroy America and break up the country.
Right, which I had first heard from the right. So first, the national divorce. The national divorce, couple months ago, was all being talked about on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And then now Fox News has articles basically saying that it's the left that wants it. And at the same time, Marjorie Taylor Greene's out there basically saying that we should do it.
Right.
And I don't think, is anybody actually interested in this other than the media and crazies? Because I don't think I know a single person who'd be all yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, if you look at surveys, then it was something
Not is likely. I don't want an is likely. I want a should happen. No,
this was
it's likely,
No, I'm talking about a should happen.
Okay.
It was, let me find the statistics, but it was something 30-40% of Republicans, and I think even more of Democrats saying, yeah, we should break up the country. So couple caveats to that. First of all, I thought the Fox News thing was pretty funny because this struck me as them desperately trying to get their viewers to not talk about secession as much.
Right.
The left likes it, so it's lame.
Now they always got this I'm rubber, you're glue sort of way of dealing with stuff.
Right. So, 41% of Biden voters, as well as 52% of Trump voters, were at least somewhat in agreement with the idea, quote, that it's time to split the country, favoring blue/red states seceding from the Union. So,
really,
yeah, it's a lot more popular than you might think.
You are somebody that's socially marginalized. I am not. So let me ask you a question. With the way that the world treats you, because this is really what I want to ask people. So I want to ask Black people who are oppressed by this situation. I want to ask the white people who are on their way out trying to hold on to whatever it is they think they're holding on to. I don't understand it. I'm not trying to belittle it. I'm just trying to say what I want to ask is the current way that you're being treated by the other side in the disagreements worth basically going to war and hurting each other over?
Going to war, no, absolutely not.
That's what I'm asking you. It's you are marginalized. This is part of the deal. This is part of the cancel culture. This is part of why people want to do it. is it worth hurting people for? Are you treated so bad? And there's no way for me to ask this where it sounds, are we at a point where it would be more productive to work on it for a better future or to split it up and fight over it? It's like, I really feel like we're at the working point, not the fighting point. And I think anybody asked that question, if I could word it correctly, would agree.
For me, like, thinking about the pros and cons of like secession, and I think generally, like, thinking it through, I'm like, no, this should not happen. I would say me thinking about it has absolutely nothing to do with like transphobia, because like, even though that's something that affects me, like sometimes, not even that often, that's still like way down the list of like my issues that are important to me.
Well, what issue? Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. Then let me ask this. What issue is our country having that's worthy of that?
Right. I think for a lot of people, stuff like
healthcare. And this is a general question. You don't have to answer specifically for you. You can be the mouthpiece for stuff you've read. So yeah.
For me, it might be climate. Like,
that's the one.
I do want to specify that like it isn't just like voters and stuff. There are a lot of active like secessionist movements in the country. So one of the most popular ones favors electorally popular. Like they I think very nearly got what they wanted at the polls in 2020 on favors a large part of Oregon leaving the state and becoming part of Idaho. So they talk a lot about secession in sort of a broader sense. And so does the Texas secessionist movements. None of these people, and I don't even like agree with them, are in favor of like civil war. When they talk about secession, they always frame it as like an alternative to violence. They always say we need to split up so that we don't get split up by war later. I'm not sure I buy that argument, but like, civil war is the worst case scenario that all these people are trying to avoid. Like none of them are like, this issue is so important I would kill my neighbor for it. I'm sure some fringies are, but the people I just talked about, the 41%, the 52%, these are not people who want to be violent. These are people who want like a Brexit kind of situation. Now that would be a logistical disaster for a lot of reasons. For one, how do you split
I think
up
the only state that could get away with seceding at this point and be okay is probably California. Because
Texas could too. Texas has an enormous economy.
Yeah, but they don't grow a lot of food in Texas. They eat all cows. Then
I mean, they don't grow a lot of food in Britain. They import it. Lots of
California does that.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you don't. It's not a requirement to be a country that you need a huge agricultural base. You just need, some way to support yourself. That is a thing, though. A lot of this.
I would guess that a lot of these people want to secede because they believe in being independent. But sorry, go ahead.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it is just like at the federal level, our government is not really able to respond to any problems because we're so polarized. And I think that is partially what is. I think that's a reasonable argument. I think it's something like, is it better to go through this, frankly, probably unfeasible, but, maybe possible process to like legally break up the country? Or is it better to just say, yeah, our federal government is not going to be able to like enact any real significant policies ever? Like, think about the last 10 years, the most like significant changes in the country, mostly due to like things that the Supreme Court passed or things that happened just due to an immediate crisis and that wound up at bills.
Right. Okay. So I still don't understand, though. I mean, I understand the words. Don't get me wrong. But let's say
right.
Texas secedes. What are they getting out of it?
Oh, it'd probably be a lot worse for Texas, to be honest. What they would get out of it, Texas seceding. That would
Okay,
be
Oregon,
that would be a
part
pretty
of
bad
Oregon
idea.
and Idaho. What are they getting out of it? That gays can't get married there now? Like, whoa, we achieved everything. Gays can't get married here. It's like, what exactly are you trying to get out of it? Because I can't believe that keeping gays from getting married is enough to basically uproot the lives of millions of people.
Oh yeah.
There has to be something more on the plate when these guys get to their meetings and talk about how great this will be. I want to know what exactly is it that you're getting from this that you think will come of this. And I'm not automatically saying no, these guys are stupid. I literally don't understand what they're getting. Yeah.
Well, so let me give you like a hypothetical. Let's say, so California right now gives a lot more to the rest of the country in terms of like federal taxes than it gets back.
Yeah, they don't believe that. Yes, that's the case.
So that is a big argument that a lot of secessionists in California put forward. So there was a lot of stuff about like, let's say it's the height of the Trump years, California secedes, right? Somehow this like goes well and happens. Now California isn't like restricted by sanctuary city stuff, which they hate. They can much more easily establish like universal healthcare within the confines of their new borders, which is something that everyone in California wants, but it's not really logistically practical to do it when you're not your own country. They can do a lot of stuff that they're not. It would just give the government of this new country far, far more leeway to do things that like A, is not practical to do right now because they don't have like their own borders, or B, butts up against the federal government. Okay. So in the case of Texas, it might be stuff like, there's Roe v. Wade right now. So there's only so much they can do in terms of abortion restrictions, which to some people is a lot. There's federal income tax, which a lot of people in Texas don't like. So it's issues like that people want to secede over.
Yeah, it's just, I get it. It, made more sense to me when you said the liberal ones, because of course that's the way that I lean. And so right. I agreed with some of those things. Oh yeah, I'd like those things. But again, it's nowhere near me wanting to secede or anything like that or not work together. No. And then especially on the conservative side that I don't necessarily understand as well, but I'd like to, but why? I understand. Oh, here we get healthcare, and over there they keep babies from being aborted. I guess that's important to people.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of
that sounds terrible, but
I think here's a pertinent question. It's like, would you rather live in the United States, biggest GDP in the world, biggest military in the world? Our interests really do come first on the world stage in a lot of ways. Or would you rather live in Denmark? Much, much tinier country, virtually no presence on the world stage, but much better education, much better healthcare, much better workers' rights, all that kind of thing, because they're a small country, basically controlled by like-minded people, pretty much more homogenous in terms of belief. So I think a lot of countries that are wanting to secede are wanting to make like their own Denmark, essentially, and just create a homogenous. That's the dream, right? I'm not saying I agree with this, but I can sympathize. I can sympathize with where people are going with it. I think people dramatically underestimate how hard it would be.
Right. Yeah. I listened to an interview with a woman talking about civil war in this country and what that would look like. And
that would be horrifying.
What'd you say?
That would be horrifying.
Did you? I believe I sent the video to you. You might not have seen it.
But, you did?
And she was basically saying that a lot of people imagine a civil war looking like the armies get together on a field and battle, just like a civil war, and there's armies and logistic sides. And she's saying that's not really the way that it would look. The way that it would look now is much more like the storming of the Capitol. It would look much more like isolated events and pockets throughout everything, trying to dismantle what's above it. It would be much more technological. And what we have right now, if there was just more of it, we would call it a civil war. So that's terrifying. But the interviewer put out the question, they're just all, well, you also wrote in your book like about people who have come close, because her book was basically saying if our country was looked at like any other country, we would be on the list of being at risk of a civil war because of the way we're.
Which I think is true.
And he said, well, is there any hope for us? And she cited South Africa was basically on the brink of civil war, to the point where the government had actually opened fire on its own people and killed some of its own people.
You're talking like apartheid South Africa?
Yeah,
like the
coming out of apartheid. So 90s,
90s?
Early 90s.
You're right.
I only know because I lived it. But, well, through the TV. And then a new person was elected in, and it just started to flow, and it really brought itself back from that. So I found that somewhat redeeming and calming.
Well, the new person was Nelson Mandela, right? I mean, it's
no. There was a new person, and then Mandela.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was a situation where you got a more moderate person who was willing to like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then later, like the African majority gained power.
Well, I think basically this guy got into office, backed all this, said we're doing this, at which point the government was dismantled and put back together. He was no longer in office, and Mandela was voted in because their entire government was kind of shifting in that situation,
So, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's to say that there was an entire government shift, so there was a change.
Right,
so maybe we'd have to see that too. So I don't know. That's scary.
It's difficult to imagine, like, I mean, there's no shortage of people who like want the way the government works to change, but like, even if like some kind of constitutional reformer, even if like, let's say the Republicans were suddenly their entire platform was like, we need to change completely how our government works. We need to, change the Constitution completely, change the branches of government, completely reorganize it. And they took, all three branches of government. I still don't think they could actually do that. Like, I don't see what you too much like inertia and bureaucratic, like.
Right. I mean, theirs had to change because it was kind of like after our Civil War, some things had to change because. Black people
guess that's what it is.
Allowed to vote. That's the same thing that happened down there, Although
I guess if the alternative is all-out warfare, then you find a way. But.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, even if I think of some of the most downtrodden people in this country, what is the most endangered, marginalized group in this country?
Native Americans, maybe? I would say Native Americans.
Then I would ask Native Americans, is the current situation in this country worthy of going to war over?
I mean, I guess that's a weird example because a lot of Native Americans live in sort of quasi their own countries anyway, and I'm sure would like nothing better than to have their own countries.
Okay, then we'll take the one that they hit the most. I would ask Black people. And I would ask white people who feel that their rights and powers are being taken away from them. I'll ask both of those groups. Is the current situation worthy? Is the life that you are currently living so bad that you think we should go to war over it? Now, don't get me wrong. There are going to be some people who say absolutely yes, because people's lives are different. And some people are going to have that bad of a life where they're going to say, hell yeah. And I understand that. But I mean, on the whole,
I think definitely most people are going to answer that no. Like,
right? Yes. So I'm not trying to belittle the off-liers who basically, can't get a break and they're dying here. They're dying.
Right. Well, there was that guy at what was it? The Charlie Kirk Turning Point rally. It was like, when do we get to use guns?
Oh yeah, I just heard that.
Yeah.
I never even heard of that. I just heard it. I want to say a day or two ago.
Right. Yeah. So I think that guy's all for it. But no, I think most people are like, are not anywhere near the point of like wanting this to be resolved violently.
Yeah, they sure talk like they do.
I know. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene does.
Yeah.
I think Marjorie Taylor Greene would pick up a rifle.
I don't. I think she'd tell somebody else to.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
You know,
I think she's crazy. But
well, we're coming up on the end here. I wrote this down. I don't know if we covered enough of it here, but I was thinking for a conversation for a future show, I would like to have a conversation on what exactly are we so polarized about? Because really, if you try to list it, it seems like a pretty short list. Yet everybody talks about it constantly everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of political issues, but yeah, well,
I think a lot of them can be boiled down to one or two, but let's see. We'll talk about it next time. Maybe we'll each bring a couple of examples and we'll talk about it then. But until then, you're listening to Radio Wasteland and